Tools of trade policy. Tools of trade policy. So we divide the tools in two categories. One we call the tariff tools. The other, you do not have to make a table, by the way. And then we have non-tariff tools. So first we discuss tariff tools. Tariff tools. Tariff means tax. Okay, so tax-based tools, that is what it means. So what are tax-based tools? Some of these are very common. We do not have to explain much. We can just simply write the names. So first is custom duty. All of us are aware. We don't have to explain, I think. Custom duty slash, what else do we call it? Import duty. Custom duty or import duty. Custom duty and import duty. So that is the first. Second, special custom duties. It's not much different. So this is because of WTO that we now have normal custom duties and special custom duties. So custom duties that are normally allowed by the WTO agreements are simply custom duty. But then if we want to increase duty above that, it has to be based upon specific agreement and specific condition. So those come under specific custom duties. So WTO allow you to increase duty under certain rules and permissions. So these come here. Then one of the special custom duty has its own unique name, and that is called countervailing duty. Countervailing duty. In a way, this is also a special custom duty. It's not much different. But we talk about it separately. There is a special agreement for it, and it is a very important topic. What is countervailing? Any idea? Countervailing is the anti-dumping duty as per WTO. Okay. So in bracket, right? As per WTO, anti-dumping duty. As per WTO, anti-dumping duty is referred as this. Is referred as such or this. Are we clear now? Now, what do we mean by anti-dumping? So write in the next line. Dumping. First we define dumping, then only we can talk about anti-dumping. So dumping is present if the price of imported products, is less than the wholesale market price in the source market. Less than wholesale market price in the source market or in the source country. Country of origin. Number of ways it can be written. Okay. Source country itself is enough, but you should understand if country of origin is written, that is also source country. Okay. What is the meaning of this statement?
They try to kind of sell out the products by lowering their price for the world market, but the price is high for the same product in their own market. This is the dumping they were trying to do.
Yes. So if you have to prove dumping, you have to prove this, and then only you can implement countervailing. Otherwise, you cannot. So you have to prove the same product in China is priced higher in their wholesale market. Okay. So when is it possible? When the other country gives a significant subsidy. Otherwise, it is not possible. Are we clear?
In this reference,
no, not in this context. That is a different context. We'll discuss that in exchange rates today. So, right? Sorry, I forgot the line. Just give me a second. Yes, it is possible when the source country gives significant subsidies. So, dumping we are talking about. It is possible when the source country gives significant subsidies. Subsidies, okay? So that is, now what is countervailing? What is specifically the meaning of countervailing? Anti-dumping is simply you impose custom duty to prevent dumping, but countervailing is a specific type of anti-dumping where we can tax only up to the level of subsidy. So right, under countervailing, spelling is VE. We pronounce it as countervailing, but it is wheel as a word. Under countervailing, we can impose custom duty equal to the subsidy given by source country. We can impose custom duty equal to the subsidy given by source country. How do you identify that? The difference between the price of import and the wholesale market price in that country. That is how you identify that. So that much you can. So subsidy given by source country. So source country from where you import. Okay. So this is all about import duty and countervailing. So what is the difference between them? इस पे question आ सकता है. So what is the difference between countervailing and anti-dumping? क्या difference होता है बताइए? You do not have to write anything extra. It's already here. See, anti-dumping is a concept. Anti-dumping duty, there is, as a concept, there is no limit on it. But when we say countervailing, then we limit how much anti-dumping can be there. This is the difference. Other than that, no. No. Repeat your question. Custom duty, I'm not saying, I'm asking difference between countervailing and anti-dumping. Custom duty or इसमें तो difference है, that is different thing. This is over and above custom duty, by the way. Okay, this is over and above your standard custom duty. Countervailing is a restricted anti-dumping duty which does not try to punish the other country, merely try to address the difference. That is the difference. We do not have to punish the people in that country for what their country is doing. Okay, are you clear? हम ये कह रहे हैं कि हम पहले एंटी डंपिंग में बहुत ज्यादा टैक्स लगा देते थे. That is not allowed. आप उतना ही टैक्स लगा सकते हैं जितना वो कंट्री सब्सिडी दे रही है, so that the difference is removed and now there is fair competition between their product and your product. The objective of WTO is fairness, not to penalize. So it brings fairness. The objective of countervailing duty is fairness, whereas anti-dumping can go beyond fairness and can go beyond fairness into punishment domain, because it is a concept. There is no limit on it. Are we clear now? That is the difference. Clear? So anti-dumping, and now one more interesting thing, right? Anti-dumping duty is not at all useful. Anti-dumping duty is not at all useful if the source country uses exchange rate manipulation. If the source country uses exchange rate manipulation. Are we clear? अगर वो exchange rate manipulation करते हैं, then price will be lower in our market, but also in their market. Okay, and we can't prove it. So that's the difference. You should try to do this mathematically. इसको एक बार mathematical example के साथ try करके देखना. Immediately it will become clear. But you should try to do it. Okay. So you take a product. The price in China is $10, and exchange rate is 85, let us say, or 80 rupees per dollar. Now, when China exports, or yuan, sorry, not dollars, so yuan official rate is 14. Now China artificially reduces the value of yuan, and now if let us say 1 yuan is equal to 10 rupees. So then do the same. Okay, इसके बाद calculation करके देखना, you will get the answer. Since they are not giving subsidy in that case, price difference will not be there, but their products still become cheaper in our market. Okay, so it will become clear. In exchange rate topic, I'll go into further depth of this topic. Exchange rate manipulation is something we have to discuss today. Next, rest we just have to write the names. Explanation was only for this anti-dumping and countervailing. So next is export subsidies. Export subsidies. Clear? Next, export taxes. Now, with export subsidies, right in bracket, restricted by WTO. You cannot do this, because when you do it, it is dumping in other country. Try to understand, when you give subsidy, the prices of your exports will reduce than your wholesale market price. That is why it is restricted. ये illegal होता है. Still, if you do it, the other country will impose anti-dumping on you. So this is restricted. And what about export taxes? WTO has no problem. If you want to increase the price of your product, that is your choice, and that is not affecting competition. So that is not restricted. But why we will do it? Because that makes our exports, I mean, let us say, less attractive, or that makes our product uncompetitive. So why we will do this? Any idea? Right, for example, in bracket, right, for example, recently on basmati rice, okay, we increased the tax. Yes, just because it's not always that we want to encourage exports. Some products we may discourage. That's the reason. Food security, number of reasons can be there. Timber exports are taxed. We do not want to send away the wood from India. We do not want to lose the national wealth. Coal is taxed. So primary sector products, many of them are taxed. We do not want to encourage those exports. Are we clear? Okay, इसमें भी इंटरेस्टिंग है कि हम raw wood को tax करते हैं. We do not tax the processed wood. So we are encouraging that even if you want to export wood, you do some value addition in it, so that our country make more money on it. That's what we encourage by having taxes. The purpose is not to make money. The purpose is to restrict certain products for other important objectives. Yeah. Next, import subsidies. Again, it is counterintuitive. Normally, हम import पे tax लगाते हैं, subsidy क्यों देंगे? Why we will give subsidy on imports? But we give it right in bracket. For example, urea or fertilizer. You can write, for example, fertilizer. Don't we give subsidy on them? Fertilizer is our second biggest subsidy in India, and that is largely imported from abroad. And we give subsidy directly on import. Okay, so in a way, we are encouraging certain imports by giving subsidies, and that is because those products are necessary, and we do not have domestic production, so we might have to do that. Clear? So these things are not very common. Export tax and import subsidies. These are counterintuitive, but in some cases we do that. Other things are very common. Now, non-tariff rules. Non-tariff rules. Right? These are also called quantitative restrictions or quantitative tools. These are also called quantitative tools. नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता है, कोई qualitative नहीं. There is no name. There is no alternative. You do not use monetary policy classification here. It will not be valid. Okay? क्वांटिटेटिव इसलिए कहा जाता है क्योंकि हम इसमें क्वांटिटी पे रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगाते हैं. क्वालिटी का कोई लेना देना नहीं है इसमें. ओके, ये क्वांटिटी क्वालिटी बोथ ही दोनों यही होते हैं. सो राइट, पॉइंट नंबर 1, कोटा. QUOTA. Okay, some champions write KOTA also. So quota is what that you allow a limited import from a particular country, okay, or from an individual country. So restriction, how much any country can export. Restriction, how much any particular country or individual country can export to the concerned country, the country which is making policy, to the country concerned or concerned country. Okay, so for example, we import, let us say, palm oil. So we make restriction that no country will be able to sell more than 10 million ton or 10 lakh ton of palm oil. So if we are importing from 5 countries, all of them have to export below a certain limit. That is quota. Okay. Why do people do it? Sometimes for diversifying their product basket so that they're not dependent on one country. So it started with a, like you can say, a reasonable claim that we want to diversify, we want to stabilize trade. But later on, it all became political. The countries you do not like, you impose quota on them. Countries you like, your friendly country, you remove quota from them. So ultimately, it became very political in nature. For example, EU. EU was the worst player in that. Today, they talk about free market and everything. Nowadays, they are not even talking about free market. But earlier, they would love to lecture the rest of the world on human rights and free markets. Today, they've stopped talking about it. Earlier also, they were not talking about it, or they were only talking about it, but in reality, they were doing this in the name of free market. Europe used to have these quotas, okay? So Europe was very notorious for these quotas. अपनी countries उनकी सब FTA में आ गई. That was part of European Union. For them, there will not be a quota. Quota किस पे लगाया फिर? Quota लगाया India. It was aimed at India. Pakistan is exempted. Bangladesh is exempted. India is targeted. I'm saying it. 71 के बाद ये introduce हुआ था. To punish India specifically. To punish Vietnam specifically. To punish Egypt. कुछ specific countries पे लगाया था. So those were the problems. So this is banned by WTO, restricted by WTO. Okay? होता नहीं है. नहीं, ये कोटा तो बैन हो गया. आप FTA कौन सा कह रहे हैं? No, it is not yet done. It is negotiated. अभी negotiation. Next, right? Product ban. We do not have to explain. This is clear. Okay, product ban. So it can be product ban, it can be country specific restriction. Next, third is country specific restriction. Okay, I think this is also quite clear. We do not have to explain what it is. Then what can be other quantitative restrictions? कुछ और हो सकता है? So you allow limited from a country, you do not allow from a country, you allow from a country, but you do not allow a particular product. Product ban to kal hi humne discuss. So these are the three quantitative restrictions, and under this right together, that all of these are restricted by WTO. Now WTO does not allow these. You cannot discriminate against a country. You cannot restrict a product as such. And if you want to restrict them, there are special agreements, and those we will discuss now. Next, right? Same in the same line, continue. Some restrictions are allowed as per following agreements. So you can have restrictions. A country has a right, but under agreements. There can be some restrictions under following agreements. So right, point number 4 now, the fourth tool that is available. So essentially these are the previous tools only, but as per WTO. TBT, technical barriers to trade. TBT, technical barriers to trade. Are we clear? What do we mean by that? So you can have restriction, but on technical grounds, that this product is inferior, this product is unsafe. So is tarah se laga sakte ho. And you cannot just claim that Indian motorcycles are unsafe. You can't do that. That must be as per the agreement. There are conditions which you must satisfy in order to have a ban. You can't just casually use it. Okay? So it's a reasonable restriction. Every country has a right to prevent from unsafe products. So that is fair. For example, this interesting example you can write here is Samsung Note 7, I think. हाँ बैन उस पे लगा था Samsung Note 7 था या 8 था, but you can write 7 अभी. So Samsung Note 7 पे बैन क्यों लगा था? Do you remember? I mean, it's a very famous case a few years ago. So somewhere around 2017-18, it was in news. So these phones had some problem. They used a new type of battery, which despite small size would give very big backup. But this battery had a problem. It created several cases, or it resulted in blast. So many of these phones blasted, and many people actually were injured. One person unfortunately got killed also. So that is why this was restricted. So ye ek example is, so this is a fair restriction. So just as soon as there were few cases, this was restricted. And this is the time when Apple introduced Apple XL and gained this market. Otherwise, this market, the large size phone, was before that was dominated by Samsung. So Apple captured that time because USA restricted. Now Samsung was the top player in USA at that time. So now Samsung phone is not available, so Apple grabbed that opportunity. That year, Apple doubled its market size. Anyways, next. So TBT is clear. Now on the basis of hygiene also you can restrict. So we call that SPS, sanitary and phytosanitary. Sanitary and phyto. Phyto means pertaining to plants. Sanitary and phytosanitary. Norms, NORMS, norms. Okay, so just write in bracket on the basis of hygiene. We do not have to explain much. So you can have restrictions on the basis of hygiene. Example, right? For example, ban on Indian mangoes by EU. Ban on Indian mangoes by EU. So this type of question, now it is too old to be asked, I think, but this type of question can always be there, that Indian mangoes were recently restricted by European Union under which WTO provision. Okay? So these type of things you should remember. So we recently koi aisa ban nahi hai, so do not bother with that, but earlier there have been many examples. Okay? Recently, the ban which has been in news are political restrictions. Next, right? Political restrictions. So on political ground, you can restrict. Okay. So for example, we do not have to explain. So for example, restrictions on Russian oil. Okay, Russian oil बहुत ज़्यादा news में है. India is also targeted for buying it because it is restricted. But these are norms, not law. Okay, so WTO recommends you. So WTO cannot actually have a litigation against you on this ground at least, but it gives a guideline. Are we clear here? So restrictions on Russian oil, and there are many restrictions. For example, Iran. For example, North Korea. Okay, For example, Somalia, and now this country, Yemen. Okay, these are all restricted under it, political. Then restrictions on basis of human rights. Restrictions on basis of human rights. For example, Persian carpets. Persian carpets from many Central Asian countries. So this type of export is restricted. Okay, Persian carpets from many Central Asian countries. So why are they restricted? क्यों किया इसको restrict? What is the human right issue in that? No, it is not China. Sorry? Abuli. No. The argument is that they use child labor predominantly to produce them, which is against human rights. Okay. So उस restriction पे भी, I mean उस basis पे भी restriction लगाया जा सकता है. Okay. So this firecrackers are restricted, for example, because again the argument is child labor is used. Okay. So these are some examples of human rights based restriction. So that is all. Okay. And these are the tariff rules and non-tariff rules. Next, India's trade policy. This is the last topic in international trade, then we shift to exchange rate. India's trade policy. Right. FTP 2015-20. Okay. Although we have a new policy as well, but we'll talk about that later. First, we talk about this. FTP 2015-20. FTP stands for foreign trade policy. FTP 2015-20. Now, we have to discuss just 3 points from here. First is it introduced MEIS. Second, SEIS. So, MEIS, SEIS. Thank you. Merchandise export from India scheme. Some students generally confuse this with manufactured export or manufacturing export, which is wrong. Merchandise export from India scheme. And what is SEIS? From India scheme. Merchandise export from India scheme. And this, what should be SEIS? Bataiye? Service export. Okay, so easy after writing MEIS. Now, what is the specialty of this? What was the change with that? Right? These policies simplified and merged the previous policies into a single framework. Merged the previous policies into a single framework. Okay, it's the same framework, just the products are different. Okay. Now, before that, we used to have 11 different policies. You do not have to write that, that's now very old. But 11 different policies. And it was very difficult to match them, understand them. Okay, how do you utilize them? That was very complex. This is a simple, single simplified framework. What do we mean by that framework? Right? This framework encourages diversification of product basket and trade partners. This framework encourages diversification of trade basket. We discussed that last time, composition. Diversification of trade basket. That was composition, that your composition should be diversified. You should be exporting many products, not just few products. Do you remember that? So that is product basket. Diversification of product basket and trade partners. With how many countries you trade. Are we clear here? So this is the objective. Now, what it does, last point, it achieves that by giving tax exemptions. By giving tax exemptions or tax credit certificates. Known as duty credit scripts. Officially, we call them duty credit scripts. Duty credit scripts. Okay, it is not script. Okay, scripts. लिखा होने के बाद भी सब लोग गलत लिखते हैं. Okay, because so script would literally translate into something like a पर्ची. Okay, that is what script means. So what do we mean by this duty credit scripts? देखो लिखना नहीं है बट है ये सब्सिडी, बट हम सब्सिडी बोल नहीं सकते क्योंकि सब्सिडी रिस्ट्रिक्टेड है. Subsidies are restricted by WTO. So technically we give something which is not subsidy, but it is subsidy. Okay. So what we do, we give them a certificate and you can encash that certificate. That's it. So it is a subsidy. बस वो cash subsidy नहीं मिल रहा है, price कम directly नहीं हो रहा है. So what we do, we give them a certificate which can be used against any tax payment. कोई भी tax payment. Earlier it was excise duty and import duty. You could use it against two types of duties. I'm going to talk about it. So, because there is some technicality. Now, I was saying that you can use it against the payment of import duty. Originally, in past, you could only use it for import duty. That if you are importing something and you have to pay tax on that, against that you can use it. That tax will be reduced by your certificate amount. But now it was expanded to excise duty. So excise duty, as soon as we expand, this becomes significantly more usable. And later on, we allowed it for GST. And what government did here was, government also made it a certificate, a financial instrument. Now it is a financial instrument. You can trade it in the market also. आपने 100 करोड़ का एक्सपोर्ट किया, 4% का टैक्स बेनिफिट मिला, you get 4 crore rupees worth of tax certificate. Okay, 100 crore you export, 4 crore you get. Now 4 crore is not cash but a certificate. But that government allowed to be transferable under this act. And as soon as you can transfer, that means you can sell it to anyone. आपको अगर टैक्स नहीं पे करना है और उसके अगेंस्ट यूज नहीं करना है, for example your product is not under tax, then you can sell it to someone. Some person who has to pay 4 crore rupees of tax can use your certificate and you can charge them 3 crore 90 lakhs. Still, there is some gain to both the parties. You're not able to understand. We give you, for example, we give you a canteen coupon. Okay, those students who do well in their test, we give them a canteen coupon, let us say. Now, canteen coupon is not person specific. अगर आपको कैंटीन में कुछ नहीं खाना है, for example, you are a person who doesn't eat outside, what you can do, you can sell it to your friend or you can gift it also. But let's say you sell it, coupon is worth 500 rupees, you charge them 450 rupees, you get 450 cash. You were not able to use that coupon otherwise, but now you're 450 cash. The other person also benefits by 50 rupees. So that is how its applicability is now improved. So earlier there was a problem that many firms did not have to pay that much of tax. Certificate ज़्यादा आ जाते थे, उतना tax नहीं देना होता था, and then they were not able to use it, utilize it, because these were not transferable. और हमने इसको लास्ट टाइम 15-20 में ट्रांसफरेबल बना दिया. एंड मेकिंग इट ट्रांसफरेबल मींस एवरी कंपनी कैन यूज इट इफेक्टिवली. इसी कारण से हम कह रहे हैं कि सब्सिडी है. अर्लियर इट वाज नॉट लाइक सब्सिडी, बट नाउ सिंस यू कैन एनकैश इट, इट इज लाइक ए सब्सिडी. आर वी क्लियर? और इसी वजह से इंडिया के ऊपर बहुत सारे केसेस हुए. दिस स्कीम ऑफ इंडिया अट्रैक्टेड अ लॉट ऑफ लिटिगेशन. Clear? Now you are asking what is the rate? The rate actually varies upon what you export and to whom you export, and that is how we encourage diversification. Okay, so if you export a traditional product, you get lesser support. If you export a new product, you get more support. That is the idea. So for example, basmati rice is a traditional export. If you export basmati rice, you get 2% subsidy or 2% benefit. Clear? But you export automobile, a car from India, which is not a very traditional product, you get 3.5% benefit. And you export mobile phone from India, made in India mobile phone. This is a category where India is not even a player, so you get 5% benefit. Okay. So what you export, benefits depend upon that, and we encourage people should export new product. They diversify into new areas. अगर आप traditional export करते हो तो आपको कम benefit मिलेगा. You get lesser benefit for traditional products. I hope this is clear. Similarly, if you export to traditional partners, you export to UAE, you export to Saudi Arabia, you export to Singapore, USA. These are all very traditional market. You do not get much benefit. You get lesser benefit. Now let us say you export basmati rice. Basmati rice you export to USA, which is a very well established product in an established market. So you do not have to create a supply chain. You do not have to spend on branding. People are already aware of this product. So your expenses are very less. So to such people, government gives a very less benefit. Let us say 1% benefit. But same basmati rice you export to Argentina, where it is a new product, and you have to make more efforts. To these people, government reward more. So it's a traditional product, but to a new market. So benefit will increase. Let us say you get 3% benefit. And now to the same Argentina, you export a car. Now it is earlier it was traditional product in a new market. So you get 3%. But now car, which is a new product in new market. So you get 5%. So likewise, it is a table. Are we clear? So combination of what you export and to whom you export, you get the benefit. Maximum 5 or 4.5 and lowest was 1%. So traditional products, basmati rice and leather products, textile, okay, these were attracting lower benefits. and somebody exporting completely new type of products, they will getting more benefits. So that is how we promoted diversification. Are we clear? पूरी तरह clear है सभी को? Online students also? They have not replied even to that. Okay, so this is clear to us. So there were 3 points of it. Third point was actually this DCS, duty credit script. So in total, 3 points. What was duty credit script point? That duty credit script is a very old tool, but this time around we made it tradable. We made it a financial instrument. That was new in that. Okay. Sorry.
Which year you made it tradable?
15. 17 में इसमें हमने GST को ऐड कर दिया था. Okay. Because GST was introduced in 17 only. So that's why. So you do not have to write separately. That's logical. Because earlier on excise, now excise जब खत्म कर दिया, GST आ गया तो GST को दे दिया. That's all. So that's all about this policy now, right? Current FTP 2021-26. Current FTP 2021-26. Is almost a continuation. Is almost a continuation. However, with a new name and small changes. However, with a new name and small changes. So what is the name? Right? ROTDEP. Okay, so something like remission on taxes and duties on exported products, something like that. I don't exactly remember. Something. So this is the latest policy. It is just an old wine in new bottle, rehashed version of MEIS. Why rehashed version? Because MEIS is under a lot of cases. There were a lot of cases on it. So we changed the form and factor. Doesn't matter much. इस पे भी case हो गए. Okay, we'll have a new name next time.
Cases about what?
Cases that we cannot give subsidy. The nature of this is subsidy. No, not on international court. International court में नहीं जाता WTO. WTO has its own dispute settlement mechanism. Okay, WTO is outside UN, by the way. Be very clear on that. WTO is not a UN body, and WTO is not under any obligation to listen to ICJ or ICC, International Court, Criminal Court, and International Court of Justice. Where are these? कहाँ पर हैं ये? Can you tell me? नहीं. Netherlands, The Hague. The Hague. Okay. HGUE. Pronounce इसको वो फिर भी हेगी करते हैं. I don't know how. Anyways, so that is not related to it. Okay, it has its own dispute settlement mechanism. So our current policy is FTP 21-26, and the most notable feature of it is ROTDEP, which is also based on MEIS, means it promotes diversification of trade basket, diversification of trade partners, and based on duty credit scripts. Okay. So same thing. That is why I discussed from here. Now, what are new features in that? Do we have any additional feature? Just a handful of points. Although बहुत ज़्यादा उसमें कुछ explain करने जैसा नहीं है, but right. In addition, it has following objectives. So एक बहुत important objective है यहाँ पे. Employment generation through exports. This is one of the major objectives that we have added. Employment generation through exports. That we should be able to create jobs through our exports. So what we do for that, right in bracket, more labor intensive sectors get higher support. More labor intensive sectors get higher support. Clear? उनको हम और भी ज़्यादा subsidy देते हैं. That is what we do. But subsidy is like the N word in USA. We will not use that word. Okay. In WTO, subsidy is an N word. Okay, subsidy एक ऐसा word है जिसका प्रयोग नहीं होना चाहिए. What was that Harry Potter में Voldemort? The name must not be pronounced. Do not name him so like that. In America, it is N word, nigger. Okay, it's a hate crime if you use that word. In 70s, there used to be F word, which has now become very common, so it is no longer relevant. So this is one of the key objectives. Another thing is promoting trade through e-commerce. Promoting trade through e-commerce. नेक्स्ट एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी, ये सब ट्रेडिशनल है जो हम बाद में लिख रहे हैं. मेजर इसमें जो नए फीचर है वो ये दो हैं, ई कॉमर्स विच इज ए न्यू फील्ड एंड देन दिस लेबर इंटेंसिवनेस. एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी बहुत ही ट्रेडिशनल ऑब्जेक्टिव है. एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी, फूड सिक्योरिटी, स्टिल दे कैन आस्क यू इन पीटी. ओके, एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी, फूड सिक्योरिटी. सो दीज आर सम ऑफ द मेजर ऑब्जेक्टिव्स. देयर इज वन मोर बट आई विल डिस्कस दैट. अभी मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा है फ्रेंकली. नाउ apart from this, there are many things which are always unsaid, जिसके बारे में कभी बात नहीं की जाती. There are some unwritten rules or unwritten practices by India which are criticized a lot internationally and which are, which are also a dispute and which are also cases against India. Now, none of these are part of policies because these are all illegal activities by WTO, so officially कुछ नहीं होगा. But these all work through informal oral orders. तो ये क्या होता है, right? Major allegations against India are, ये एग्जाम में नहीं आएगा पीटी में, बट स्टिल राइट 2-3 पॉइंट्स. दिस इज more relevant for means and in fact from IR perspective actually. Anyways, so major allegations against India are, point number 1, lack of national treatment. In bracket, right, discrimination against foreign products. National treatment. So it is one of the WTO principle. The national treatment means any product, whether it is your domestic product or international product, you should not discriminate between them. They should be treated same. Only thing you can do on imported product is charge custom duty at your border. Once it is inside border, you are not going to discriminate. But we do. Okay. Unofficially. For example, in government procurement agreement, there are many things that we do. Next is government procurement. Shadow ban in government procurements. Shadow ban or informal restrictions, it's the same thing. Shadow ban or informal restrictions in government procurement. So when government procures, for no reason that it explains, it can restrict foreign companies from that tenders. In many tenders, it does not allow foreign companies to participate. Or if they participate, even if they have better bids, their bids are rejected on flimsy grounds. उनके बिड्स को रिजेक्ट कर दिया जाता है किसी भी लेम एक्सक्यूज पे. सो दे टेक इंडिया टू द डिस्प्यूट सेटलमेंट मैकेनिज्म. कुछ होना नहीं है बट ठीक है, वो ट्राई करना चाहिए. दैट्स इट. आर वी क्लियर? सो दिस इज आल्सो समथिंग वी हैव स्टार्टेड डूइंग मोर एंड मोर. एंड दैट चाइनीज कंपनी तो किसी गवर्नमेंट टेंडर में हम पास ही नहीं होने देते, बाय द वे. ओके, समटाइम्स व्हेन देयर इज नो डोमेस्टिक अल्टरनेटिव, देन वी आर फोर्स्ड टू यूज दैट, अदरवाइज नॉट. ओके, even for that there is a lot of criticism of government. For example, if you remember this Sardar Patel statue, in that statue there had to be some copper plating, and for that there was no industry in India, so we had to allow some part of that to be imported from China. So Chinese technician did some work on that, because that unfortunately was not done in India before that, because in India we had no tradition of building large statues, and China was building maximum of them. That's why so, copper plating जो था वो China ने किया था, but otherwise we do not allow that. For example, Huawei. Earlier, if you would take internet connection from BSNL, your modem would always be from Chinese brands. So BSNL was buying them and buying them in numbers like multiple millions. But बाद में इस पे restriction लगाया हमने. Okay. So still there was no Indian company in that field. So only Chinese companies were restricted unofficially. ये सब WTO के principles के against. एक होता है domestic content requirement. Third, इस पे क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, ये डिस्प्यूट में रहा है रिसेंटली. डोमेस्टिक, ये तीनों ही न्यूज में रहे हैं बाय द वे. So question आपसे ऐसा नहीं पूछा जाएगा that India is in news. They will ask you a question on this technical term. What is national treatment? What is domestic content requirement? What is government procurement agreement? Okay, so these kind of things can be asked. So the last point I said was domestic content requirement. ये क्या होता है? That, for example, we give export benefit. In order to give an export benefit, we have certain rules. In that, one of the rules is you cannot get export benefit just by importing from another country and re-exporting from India. That will not work. Products should have majority of value addition inside India. So for example, you are manufacturing mobile phone in India. Clear? But those mobile phones are only assembled in India. Largely components are imported from China. So so many companies, for example, MI is using India as an export hub for its mobile phone export in South Asia. Okay, MI का एक बहुत बड़ा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है इंडिया में. So they were using India as a manufacturing hub, but ये manufacturing hub नहीं था starting में, ये था एक assembling hub. Some manufacturing they were doing in India basic, but largely they would import components from China, assemble inside India, and re-export from India to countries like Sri Lanka, countries like up to Oman, or countries like Bangladesh. Okay, so अब उस केस में क्या होगा? In that case, they were hardly adding $100 value in India, or not even $100, $20 value in India outside $200. $200 का जो मोबाइल है, $200 worth of mobile has only $20 value added in India. In the $200, the value of imported component is almost $150. उनको हम export benefit नहीं देंगे. Are we clear? So we have introduced domestic content requirement. Government tender में भी है ये. Even if the company is Indian, और लेकिन वो Indian company largely foreign imported product की सरकार को बेच रही है, तो वो भी allowed नहीं होगा. Are we clear? So we only relax when there is no domestic alternative. तब हमें करना पड़ता है. Clear? All of these three terms are clear. What is domestic content requirement? That any product should have a minimum domestic value addition in order to enjoy some benefits. उन पे कोई negative restriction नहीं है, but उनको कोई कहीं पे भी हम consider नहीं करेंगे किसी benefit के लिए. That is more like that. These are all against WTO rules, by the way. But ठीक है, हम कर रहे हैं. We have understood the game and we are playing it now. So now, interestingly, India used to be the country which used to file most cases in WTO. Okay. India used to be the country which was filing most cases. India was a country which was अच्छा बच्चा of class. Okay, always behaving well. अच्छे बच्चे बैठ जाओ, so India बैठ जाएगा. So likewise, class teacher की बात सुनेगा. But along the line, India has understood that there is no benefit being that अच्छा बच्चा. You are considered to be a dabbu or idiot or dumb. Okay, you need to understand that it's the naughty boys of class who get all the girlfriends. So you need to become that naughty boy. So now India is a country against which maximum cases are there. वो रोतड़ू बच्चा जो मैडम के पास जाता है, उसने मुझे मारा की जगह हम वो गए जिसके नाम से कंप्लेंट जाता है, आज उसने मुझे मारा, उसने मेरा हाथ तोड़ा. Like that is the change in the nature in last 10 years, and that same change you see in the language of foreign minister also, external affairs minister. We have become increasingly aggressive, self-assertive. We have understood that we can defy. पहले हम डरते थे, अरे रूल ना टूट जाए, रूल ना टूट जाए. अब हमने समझा रूल टूटेगा तो क्या होगा? Ultimately it will go there, and you just have to hire a battery of lawyers, station a permanent office, वहाँ पे 200 lawyers को permanently बिठा दो. China did that for years. China had a full diplomatic department dealing with WTO cases. So उनका पूरा lawyers का एक पूरा, I mean, what to say? There used to be an entire complex of lawyers. एक पूरा housing complex और पूरा complex था जो WTO में जेनेवा में ही रहता था. तो इंडिया ने भी वो सीख लिया. हमारे भी 200 lawyer permanently station. And करो cases. We are expert in getting dates. So that is the game we are playing. And we have understood there is no respite from it because everyone else is doing protectionism. You can't be good in unfair world. You should be fair in fair conditions, but not fair in unfair conditions. Okay, this has been the change along the way. Or if we want to use some historical or some reference from Indian religion or Indian history, then we were behaving like Ram, but we have now stated behaving like Krishna. Ram was fair even with unfair. Krishna was very clear, be fair with fair and unfair with unfair. So that's what we have started to. Clear? So these are certain terms which have been in use. In सब पे news रहा है क्योंकि, for example, in the last WTO ministerial summit that was in 2022, लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है. You've already written what is required. So in 2022, उसमें सबसे ज्यादा डिबेट हुआ था ये हमारा गवर्नमेंट प्रोक्योरमेंट एग्रीमेंट ऑफ इंडिया. दैट वाज द मोस्ट डिबेटेड टॉपिक ऑफ दैट. And under pressure, India had to allow some relaxation. Okay, so we agreed that for 4-5 of our PSUs, we will now allow all the companies. So हमने concede किया था कुछ इसमें because there was too much debate on that. So these have been in use. Anyways, let's complete. Okay, trade is complete now. Policy is also complete, and I've discussed in from all the perspectives, and you understood the change in the nature of our policy. And you can write mains question also properly with that understanding. Question on protectionism, argue that we are doing all that. I mean, do not write we are doing, by the way, right? These are allegations against India. Always write like that. That there are allegations against India. Meanwhile, we have to understand we cannot be fair in an unfair world. We cannot be a bird having olive leaves or what do they have, or white pigeon. We can't be behaving like a white pigeon in a world full of hawks. Okay? So that's all. Next heading, right? Exchange rate. Exchange rate. Okay. first of all, what is exchange rate? So value of foreign currency in terms of domestic currency. Value of foreign currency in terms of domestic currency. For example, 1 rupee is equal to $0.0122. This is the current value of dollar. Okay. This is our exchange rate. Interestingly, not $1 equal to 83 rupees, right? In the next line, the more commonly used $1 equals 83 rupees is American exchange rate, or is the US exchange rate. Clear? So वो हमारा exchange rate नहीं है जो $1 equal to 83 है. So why we use it? Because everything is based upon dollar in the international trade. So every single product, every single currency, we evaluate them in dollar. So that is why we are using American system. Clear? So our official exchange rate is different, although we are using American exchange rate. Next, types. No, sorry, not types. First, right, exchange rate system. Then we discuss the types of exchange rate movement. So, exchange rate system. Now, what is that system? Yes, point number one, fixed exchange rate. Fixed exchange rate. We'll write just 1 or 2 lines about it, because for regular classes in my foundation batch, I give at least 5-page notes on just fixed exchange rate. Okay, it's a very important topic to discuss and understand. But यहाँ हमें एक ही line लिखनी है क्योंकि picky topic नहीं है. So over there I explain gold standard. Over there I explain the evolution of the system of exchange rate. But here we do not have to. So what is the objectiveness here, right? This system was the dominant system until late 60s. This system was the dominant or the global system since late 60s. When USA abandoned the gold standard. So this is the history of it. When USA abandoned the gold standard. Underline gold standard. You do not have to explain it, but I'm giving you orally the meaning. I'm discussing it with you. So gold standard is based upon a system where one currency says, or one country says, my currency can always be converted back into some valuable metal. So if you give dollar to us and you are not happy with keeping dollars, we will give you equivalent gold. So dollar used to have a value in gold. Before that, pound, the British pound, used to have a value in silver. Okay. So likewise, there has always been some major central currency around which international exchange rate was based upon. Now, the system was British value comes from silver, and rest of the countries, they decide as per Britain. They fix their exchange rate with Britain. So that gives independent value to different currencies. Meanwhile, some of the countries, what they do not fix with Britain. They feel they have their own importance. So they also started defining their currencies in silver. That would also automatically equivalent to their currency with pound. Okay. So that is how it worked. Now, America abandoned gold standard. That was the last currency with the gold standard. क्योंकि अमेरिका गोल्ड स्टैंडर्ड देता था तो सभी कंट्रीज गोल्ड रखने की जगह अमेरिकन डॉलर रखती थी. एवरीवन यूज्ड टू स्टोर गोल्ड, आई मीन अमेरिकन डॉलर्स. That is why American dollar is the reserve currency, because it was the last gold standard. That is clear. And that is also the reason why American dollar became the currency of international trade. Now, what America did after this? As soon as America abandoned the gold standard, America was worried dollar will lose its status. So what they did next was very smart. They went up to Saudi Arabia, signed an agreement with Saudi Arabia. That happened. वो gold standard के साथ साथ ही उन्होंने किया. They went up to Saudi Arabia and said, we will protect your interests. We will ensure you lead the entire Islamic world. And at that time, this was also the time when Iran had this Islamic revolution. So Saudi's leaders royals were afraid that same revolution can happen in Saudi Arabia, and we royals will be killed like Iranian kings were killed by the mob, and some clergy will become the ruler of the country. So that is what they were also worried. So royal family needed some protection. America gave them protection, but America got something in exchange, a rule that established petrodollars, that any petroleum payment in world will always be in dollars. Saudi Arabia then announced, we make a group OPEC. ये सब simultaneously हो रहा था. So by 73, all of this was finalized. We make a group OPEC under which all the countries will decide the oil prices together, and we will only accept dollar in exchange of oil. So OPEC को अमेरिका ने ही बनवाया था to maintain the supremacy of dollar. Now any country who needs oil has to use American dollar. and everybody needs oil. So अमेरिका ने ensure किया कि डॉलर अब भी रहेगा. Clear? So that is why it is called petrodollar. Petrodollar, you might have heard of this term, petrodollars. So petrodollar यही था. So gold standard abandon हुआ तो petrodollar start हुआ. What China and Russia are doing right now in de-dollarization, this is all means debate actually. De-dollarization वो जो कर रहे हैं, वो उन्होंने ये किया है कि पेट्रोल के अगेंस्ट अब डॉलर एक्सेप्ट नहीं होगा. So Russia is one very big country which has come outside petrodollar, of course. And then Iran already is a very big reserve country, although it is not trading much, but it has potential. That is also outside dollar. And now Saudi Arabia has announced finally. Last year Saudi Arabia ने भी announce कर दिया कि हमारे लिए भी डॉलर लेना necessary नहीं है. We will start accepting select few currencies. Now India, Saudi Arabia signed agreement where we will pay rupee now to them. Clear? और सद्दाम हुसैन का एनिमी क्यों था अमेरिका? I mean, international relations actually is a lot related to economics. क्योंकि सद्दाम हुसैन ने पेट्रो डॉलर को एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया था. Saddam Hussein was signing bilateral agreement with other country where he was not accepting dollars against oil. So India के साथ सद्दाम हुसैन का agreement था, you give me wheat for oil program. So we had wheat and oil exchange system. We exported wheat every year to Iraq. Iraq would give us petrol. Okay? Same type of agreement we had with some other countries also. और इन्हीं countries के साथ USA को problem था, and USA ensured that these were destroyed. So by certain excuse, USA finally entered these countries. So USA was the leader of the global new world order, and this new world order, if major countries are going to fall out of that, or if they threaten American position, then America will ensure that those countries fail. If you are insignificant country and you are not obeying American order, America doesn't bother. Even if you are a significant country and you do not obey American, let us say, wish list, but that doesn't affect America's position, America still doesn't bother. Are we clear? But you affect America's position, America will come and destroy you. For that, there are a number of things. NGOs network. For that, the NGOs networks ने अभी अमेरिका ने आधी countries को destroy किया Middle East और West Asia. So Libya, how did they destroy? Through people protest, through NGOs. Once there was an excuse that government is attacking common protester, then America entered. That is how they toppled the government in Egypt. That is how they toppled the government in Tunisia. That is how they toppled number of government in multiple places. All of this was happening in 2010-11, and we called it Arab Spring. आपने सुना है सबने? So America was silently involved in. I'm not saying America entirely did it, but America was one of the very interested party in that. Okay? And by the way, they did something in India also. No. ISIS की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ मैं जो दिल्ली के चीफ मिनिस्टर हैं उनकी बात कर रहा हूँ. They did something in India. I was participant of that. Okay? For first 3-4 years, I was very closely related to. मैंने सभी attend किया जितना भी यहाँ दिल्ली में उनका धरना आया. And one thing, I was naive, I was stupid enough at that time not to understand what was going on, because उनके protest में वो एक चीज हमेशा बोलते थे, दिल्ली को तहरीर स्क्वायर बना देंगे. That they always would shout. You can check old videos of अन्ना हजारे protest. अन्ना हजारे के protest में स्टेज से एक बात बोले जाते थे, दिल्ली को तहरीर स्क्वायर बनाएंगे. What is तहरीर स्क्वायर? तहरीर स्क्वायर is in Egypt. तहरीर स्क्वायर was the symbol of Arab Spring. आप इंडिया को अरब स्प्रिंग, अरब कंट्रीज की तरह डेमोक्रेटिकली इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट को टॉपल करना चाहते हैं. That was going on. Now, government was so ineffective and there was so many genuine allegations that there was actual people support to that movement. So I'm not saying that movement is fake, but America promoted it. Okay. How? Through its NGOs. जितने भी लोग इसमें बड़े prominent नाम थे, ये सब major American NGOs के द्वारा prop up किए गए लोग. Whether it is Aruna Rai, she got Ford Foundation scholarship. Whether it is Arvind Kejriwal, he was also on the Ford Foundation scholarship. And all these people were also this. But this is not something you can write anywhere. But ये मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ क्योंकि मैं इसका member था. I was also one of the member of Aam Aadmi Party in the beginning. Okay. And also something which is very personal. ये कुछ मुझे ज़्यादा चीजें इसलिए भी पता है because he's a family member also. He's a distant relative. My wife's family coming. So he belongs to my wife's mama. So that is also one of the reasons I know a lot of things. So one of his relative who went to prison is the real, I mean, my wife's mama actually. So who went to prison. So there was a corruption case in which he went. नहीं सिसोदिया मेरी फैमिली. One of the Kejriwal relative who went to prison. Some Mr. Bansal went to prison actually. So, anyways, ये सब चीजें आप एग्जाम में नहीं लिख सकते हैं, but I'm telling you all of this from personal experience because I've worked a lot in NGOs. I know how these work. I was stupid at that time not to understand what was going on. Later, I understood what was going on at that time because I could connect the dots much later in life. So ये मुझे बाद में समझ में आया. मुझे उस टाइम समझ नहीं आ रहा था तहरीर स्क्वायर क्यों बोलते हैं हमेशा. So that was something like Arab Spring. तो अमेरिका ने ट्राई वो किया था, हाँ, उसके कारण वो गवर्नमेंट को टॉपल नहीं कर पाए. All that resulted into a creation of political party. That's it. but in many countries they successfully toppled government. Okay, वो चाहते थे कि गवर्नमेंट इस पे अटैक करे, कॉमनर्स को अटैक करे, और एक बार गवर्नमेंट कॉमन पीपल को अटैक करने लगेगी तब हम अमेरिका उसमें एंटर कर जाएगा. That was the objective. That never happened. So let us move it. So I explained some of the American geopolitics to you, gold standard और आगे जो. Still America is not a big villain. There are bigger villains than America, और उसको भी डिस्कस करेंगे. Okay. Now next, gold standard is clear. So gold standard abandon हुआ था 60s में. So 60s में जब gold standard abandon हुआ, when it was abandoned in 60s, the Western bloc gave up the fixed exchange rate immediately. The Western bloc adopted flexible at that time, whereas the developing countries, they didn't adopt immediately. These were forced to adopt it through later IMF conditions and the WTO agreements, which is in their interest. I'm not saying हमने कुछ गलत किया वो करके. Okay. So now write flexible, where we cover rest of the story. Flexible exchange rate. So, right, Western countries adopted it in 70s. Western countries. Western is a very India-specific term. Okay? Western का otherwise को meaning नहीं होता है, but over time this has become very popular where we call it East versus West, Western civilization. So in that sense, West is now a very standard term, but it's basically originating from a term which is Orientalism, West and Orientalism. Okay. So if you, study IR in depth, all those things will come. Okay? So PSIR was my subject actually. So, and not just because PSIR was subject, because this is subject on which I study most even today. So they adopted it in 70s, and the developing countries adopted it in 90s. And the developing countries adopted it in 90s. Adopted it in 90s as a condition to join WTO. As a condition to join WTO. So this was one of the WTO conditions simply. Clear? So this is about their origin and this is about their background. Now, right, under flexible exchange rate, currency value is determined by market forces of demand and supply. Currency value is determined by market forces of demand and supply. Demand and supply. Clear? Whereas under fixed system or fixed exchange rate, it is based on authority's decision. Under fixed system, it is based on authority's decision. So that authority can be central bank, that can be any independent authority apart from central bank. Okay, some countries have currency exchange board. So those can be there. It can be directly the ministry. So it can be any central agency. वो कोई भी हो हम उसको बोलेंगे central authority. Clear? So fixed exchange rate is now a history. Fixed exchange rate is only present in handful of very small and insignificant countries. So today almost every country is on flexible exchange rate for all practical purposes. So fixed exchange rate is largely a history. However, in your PT, one more dimension is possible to it. What is the benefit of each exchange rate system? So right, fixed exchange rate system, however, provided following benefits. Fixed exchange rate system, however, provided following benefits. Now, what are these benefits? Point number one, better control on trade. Clear? I do not have to explain this, I think. So, because you can set exchange rate, you can control your trade. Second, better control over monetary policy. This is also very important. And in fact, ये एक complete course होता है. Okay, so if you do masters, then open economy, macroeconomics में ये एक पूरा semester पढ़ाया जाता है. This is a very big topic. There are multiple theories in it. Anyways, we do not have to go in that. So, how do you have control over your monetary policy? How is that possible? Monetary policy में एक problem होती है. I mean, the target of monetary policy is to manage the exchange rate. manage the interest rate through money supply. But when foreign investments are coming into your country, when foreign trade can change money supply in your country, अचानक से बहुत ज्यादा हमने एक्सपोर्ट कर दिया और उसके कारण रुपी कंट्री में आ गया, okay, dollars are coming in, that always will change money supply. So government will not have that much control under flexible exchange rate or floating exchange rate. Clear? So this is something what we also known as impossible trinity in economics.
Introducing the Prelims Target course and Prelims Test Series at ProdEgyIAS. Designed for UPSC Prelims 2026, this comprehensive program offers in-depth classes on history, geography, science and tech, environment, polity and governance, and economy. Stay updated with current affairs and sharpen your skills with our Prelims Test Series consisting of 50 full-length tests covering all subjects along with CSAT. Join ProdEgyIAS and stay ahead.